Fracking? I couldn't describe it to you. I could pretend and try to seem like I'm educated on it, but I'm not.
I'd like to know short-term and long-term effects of fracking. What are the effects on the air and the water and the land?
I have no idea what fracking is.
We'd want to know when it's happening. We'd want to know who's monitoring. We'd want to know what the production specifications are, what kind of chemicals are being put in the ground, how deep it's going.
Well, this process has been, I think, very valuable for me to spend a day and a half with so many people that are experts in this field and have spent a lot of time in this field. It really has resulted in two things for me. One, I'm just much more knowledgeable about the whole issue. It's a complex issue, and it's very easy to get sort of focused on just one aspect of this debate. And so I have a much broader appreciation of everything from site acquisitions to the actual drilling techniques to the pipelines that are going to be necessary for the transmission. So I have more knowledge about all of those things.
So good monitoring, good data collection, really across the board at a national scale is really what's needed, and we'll need, as we understand it, identified in the group, partnerships between industry, between civil society, and with government in order to set the kind of monitoring and data collection in place that we so sorely lack.
I think there was a lot of good information about points of opportunity for people to get involved at a local level, which is primarily, I think, where a lot of the organization needs to happen. It's not easy for people to just jump in at the federal level. I think a reason to be engaged in the issue of fracking is because it is such an interconnected issue. So, you know, they talk today about air, health, water, land. It's not just an issue kind of like this particular lake at this particular national park is going to become destroyed. Rather, it's an individual and community-based health issue. And because not only our environment, but our communities are interconnected, then we really need to be looking at issues of race, class, and gender, which fracking intersects with from a universal standpoint.
It's incredibly important to understand the exposures, both in terms of the air, the water, and the impacts on the community. We know that hydrofracking, they use chemicals to put into the fluids. We know that when the fluids come back out, they may be contaminated with what was in the earth. The risks to workers and the local public is incredibly important to understand. We need to have good data, good solid monitoring data to understand what are the exposures on the site for the workers. What are the exposures for those living right by the site or in the local community? They have trucks coming through, there's social disruption.
If there is distrust, if there is lack of information, and sort of from an industry point of view, you know, that this sort of irrational fear that communities have. And for the most part, we want to have faith and trust in government, and we believe that they have a very important regulatory role to play, and they need to step up. And we, as activists, need to protect their ability to provide unbiased, timely information to communities. The other one is get informed and get connected. We often talk about whatever the issue, whether it's fracking, air quality, toxic chemicals, being involved in your community and engaged is actually good for your health. People feel better. They feel like they're in control of what happens in their communities.
So there certainly needs to be local control in terms of zoning powers, just basic police powers. Above that, the state needs to regulate the activity specific to its geology, specific to its geography. There needs to be a state-specific level of regulation, and then I think a floor. I think it was generally agreed that there should be some type of federal floor where the federal government would prescribe certain basic limits, basic regulations, again, upon which states would build, and then additional protections at a local level. Frankly, they've stepped away from some of the most important studies relative to groundwater contamination, but I think there's an essential role for the federal government to develop the science so that it can inform this base layer of protections in law and then inform state regulatory decisions and management decisions. This is an extremely complex set of questions and challenges, and we have yet to get it right, I think, in this country, but there's a lot of folks who are very concerned about about it, and the discussions that we have had, certainly over the last couple of days, tell me that there's a lot of energy and movement in the right direction.